Attorney Linda Rose got into immigration law almost by accident. And when she relocated to Tennessee from Hawaii in the 90s, she didn't think there'd be much of that sort of work here. But lucky for her, she was wrong. Her practice flourished. And with immigration in the headlines every day now, she has never been busier. Trying to keep calm and centered can be a challenge, but Linda has found an outlet in music. Oh, and did I mention she's a black belt in karate? I'm Demetria Kalodimos. It's Banner and Company. Well, Linda, thanks for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
This must be an exceptionally busy time for your practice.
This is an unusual time for the practice. Everything that we're doing now is elevated at the highest level.
To many people, though, watching and listening to the news, it seems like things have never been more tense or intense for immigrants, but not necessarily so, right?
It's always been tough. I mean, it goes through waves. I would say this is one of the worst periods, but when Trump's first administration, I would dread coming into the office every day because it was like, what next? And it was almost every day there was something. And this is what we're experiencing now. And unfortunately, some of what we're seeing today is illegal and unconstitutional and very disheartening.
Yeah.
Because there are people's lives involved. And
when you first started looking at immigration cases, though, in the 90s, wasn't there also a period of, tension?
Yes. Well, first of all, there was an economic recession taking place, and so that was all, supposedly the fault of the immigrants, and it affected business, and of course it trickled down into family immigration as well. One thing that a lot of people don't understand, that there are sort of like three components of immigration law. There's family immigration law, there's business immigration law, and there's litigation, which is like deportation. So those three do overlap and interact, but each one is impacted in a different way when we have an immigration panic situation going on. So right now, the big focus is on the mass deportations. And the sad thing about that is people who shouldn't be deported are being removed from the country, and people who are being removed are not getting their due process. And so the mistake is that some are improperly removed from the country, and then others are just not getting, their constitutional rights. And the thing is that everyone's entitled to due process. Everyone has constitutional rights, documented or undocumented. And I don't like to call the undocumented population illegal. I mean, my thought is that there is no illegal human being. And people come here undocumented, and there's a reason for that. Some of it has to do with horrible conditions in the home country. And a lot of it has to do with the economic situation in the United States. A lot of American employers are forced to hire from the undocumented workforce because we just don't have laws that allow the employers to reasonably employ people in a lot of the, what I would call, essential skills occupations. The people who are washing dishes in restaurants, changing our bed sheets, mowing our lawn. We know that those are not high-paying jobs, and many Americans don't want to fill those jobs. So the undocumented workforce steps in.
Right.
They need to be filled. Those things have to happen to keep the wheels of the economy moving.
I've heard so many people say, oh, when my grandparents or great-grandparents arrived, they did it, quote, the right way. Is that one of the misconceptions that people have, that folks coming from other countries are not going about things in the right way?
Yes, and people don't understand that the immigration laws are incredibly complex. They've actually been described by in judicial decisions as more complex than the tax code.
Really?
So it is you had mentioned how there are all these components to it between the law and the regulations and the policies. It's a very complicated area of law. And back during the turn of the century, when a lot of Europeans immigrated, it's when my grandparents immigrated to the United States, the laws were very different then. The immigration law that we have now was based on, I believe it's the 1952 Act. So it was in the 1950s, a basic structure was created. And then it was significantly modified in 1990. But that's what we work with now, and it is nothing like what immigration was in the early 1900s.
How frightened are your clients now?
Oh, right now is the worst that I've seen. I think the people at the greatest risk right now are Venezuelans who are here with the authorization of the government. They're on temporary protected status. Our government has a law that says if someone is in the country and if it would be dangerous to send them back to their home country because it's in civil strife, it's in chaos, that we provide temporary protected status. Now, temporary protected status has been in effect, I think it began in 1990, and there are people from certain countries that have been here for a long time on temporary protected status. It allows them to stay without fear of being deported, and it provides them with work authorization so they can make a living and take care of themselves. Venezuelans are frightened to no end because Venezuela is the country that the Trump administration is going after. We're going after them in the form of tariffs and deporting anyone who might be a gang member. Now, I have no problem with deporting gang members, deporting criminals, and deporting drug dealers, but even those people are entitled to some due process. They need to go in front of an immigration judge to be deported. You can't just sweep them up and send them out, and that's what's happened. So people are frightened. And then the other group that I'm really worried about are the dreamers. Young people, I might cry while I'm talking about this, young people who came here as children and have lived their lives in the United States and with their families. And I'm just so frightened that the Trump administration is going to do something to terminate the DACA protection. So these young people were given something called DACA. It's Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, and it provides them with work authorization so that they can go to college. We have some dreamers working in our office, and they are some of the brightest kids. And they're not kids, they're young people, young adults. So I worry about them, and then I worry about their families because they could come home one day and parents could be gone. And of course, there are young children who are here, and they may be undocumented, and the government they are just taking people without warning and leaving children unattended. So, yeah, people are afraid, and with good reason.
It's Banner and Company. I'm Demetria Kalodimos, and we'll be right back.
The #1 selling product of its kind with over 20 years of research and innovation. Botox Cosmetic, onabotulinum toxin A, is a prescription medicine used to temporarily make moderate to severe frown lines, crow's feet, and forehead lines look better in adults.
Effects of Botox Cosmetic may spread hours to weeks after injection, causing serious symptoms. Alert your doctor right away as difficulty swallowing, speaking, breathing, eye problems, or muscle weakness may be a sign of a life-threatening condition. Patients with these conditions before injection are at highest risk. Don't receive Botox Cosmetic if you have a skin infection. Side effects may include allergic reactions, injection site pain, headache, eyebrow and eyelid drooping, and eyelid swelling. Allergic reactions can include rash, welts, asthma symptoms, and dizziness. Tell your doctor about medical history, muscle or nerve conditions including ALS or Lou Gehrig's disease, myasthenia gravis, or Lambert-Eaton syndrome and medications, including botulinum toxins, as these may increase the risk of serious side effects. For full safety information, visit BotoxCosmetic.com or call 877-351-0300.
See for yourself at BotoxCosmetic.com.
I am not going to let you go without talking about martial arts.
Okay, that's
What in the world? How did you get involved in that? And do you still practice?
I do. I practice. So here's what happened.
Okay.
In 1975, when I graduated from college, I was living in Boston, and you probably have figured that out but now by talking to me. But
It gives you away a little bit.
well, anyway, I was living in Boston, and I thought I'd just graduated from college, and I thought, finally, some time off. I think I'll take some kind of exercise class. And I looked at there was a place called the Joy of Movement Center in Cambridge. And there were a lot of, classes like yoga and stretching. And I thought, everybody does that. And then I saw a karate class. And I thought, I'm going to try that. So I went to this, and I pronounce it karate. I went to this karate class, and I took one lesson, and I felt like I'd been turned inside out. It was just the most amazing feeling. So I got hooked on it right away. And I loved it, but the school that I first got introduced to folded. And then I was living in Provincetown, and there was someone teaching there, and I took martial arts lessons from him, and then he kind of left town, and that ended. And I just really wanted to pursue this. So my husband and I were going to go to Japan. Someone said to me, you should study at the Budokan in Japan. And I thought, that's what I'm going to do. I'm like 25 years old. And we were going to go to Japan. We had already gotten information about visas, and I'm reading about martial arts. And as I'm reading about it, Hawaii kept coming up, and it showed me that there were some of the best martial artists living and teaching in Hawaii. So I thought, well, why don't we go to Hawaii? We can speak the language, we can work, we won't come home broke. So we moved to Hawaii, and I looked around, I studied, I took classes at several different dojos, karate schools, and I knew what I was looking for. I was looking for someone who would teach it as an art form and teach the philosophy or exemplify the philosophy. And then one night I found this dojo, and I found my sensei. Now, it was a small dojo in Kalihi Valley in Honolulu. And the sensei was from Okinawa. And all the students in the class were all locals. I was the only non-local in the class. To this day, I still don't know why he accepted me into the class, but he accepted me. And then one of the senior students was telling me that they all had bets as to how long I was going to last, because here I was, this haole from the mainland, and it was the place for me. So I studied Goju karate for the 13 years that I was there. I earned my 3rd degree black belt. When I moved to Tennessee, my sensei was so mad at my husband that he wouldn't even talk to him. And he gave me 2 plastic bags, and they were filled with children's uniforms. And he said to me, here, go teach. And that was my assignment, was when you make 3rd degree, you're you become a sensei, a teacher. So that was my assignment, was to teach. So I moved to Tennessee. And first I looked around to see if there was anyone teaching Goju that I could practice with. And there was no one here. So I started teaching at my children's schools, at community centers. I taught at the Jewish Community Center, taught at a Bintra Montessori school. And I did that for about 25 years. And at one point, now I'm in my 40s and 2 children, and it was a little hard for me to be working full-time, teaching martial arts, and taking care of my children. And then that's when I started pursuing my music career. And I called my sensei in Hawaii, and I said, I would like to take a little break from training and teaching so that I can pursue music. And he said, we will always be here. Pursue music if that's what you want to do. So I took a break for about 8 years. And then, children are grown. I'm kind of backing off, working so hard. And I thought, I have room now to practice Goju again. So I went on internet and I put Goju Schools, Tennessee, and I found one. There was a man who had moved here 5 years ago from California, and I contacted him. We met, and I trained with him, and I think he was elated to have a senior student come into his dojo, and I was thrilled to have someone that I could learn from. So I've been practicing with a fellow named Russ Costello in Franklin, Tennessee. We have a dojo, and we teach very traditional Goju. And that is my passion, and I feel like it controls my life. It centers my life.
I was going to say, at this moment in time, you're in such a fight philosophically and through your work that the martial arts does it help you stay centered and kind of?
Very much so. I mean, I train twice a week. Every Monday and Thursday I go, and it's the time where I think of nothing else except what I'm doing. We begin the class with meditation, we end with meditation. And then it's 2 hours of punching and kicking and forcing the body to do what you think you can't do. And we practice. It is not at all trained to kill. You learn punches and kicks and blocks, but it is taught as an art form. I remember in Hawaii, I'd be in my class, and we'd be doing a form, and sweat pouring down my sides, and my sensei would be walking around. This is the man from Okinawa. He'd be walking around, checking everybody, and he'd walk by, and he'd do this.
One slight adjustment.
Yeah. Slight turn my fist just 1/4 of an inch and keep walking on. So it was taught as an art form.
So is music still active too?
Oh, very much. I mean, I lead a very full life.
Yeah, what sort of music?
Well, I play jazz vibraphone, and I wanted to be a musician from the time I was a kid. Now, I grew up in Framingham, Massachusetts. Berklee College of Music is in Boston, maybe 15, 20 miles away. And I come from a working class family, and that school, it was 20 miles away. It could have been 20,000 miles away. It was just out of reach.
Out of question.
Yeah. And so I wanted to play music. When I was 6 years old, I asked my parents to get me a piano. Well, they couldn't afford a piano, so they started saving. I never went without anything in my childhood, but the difference between me and maybe a middle-class family is if I wanted something, my parents would work and save for it, and then we would get it. So 6 years later, we got a piano. I was 12 years old. I started taking piano lessons. And I have to say, piano was just never my instrument. I've always had a piano in the house, and every few years I would pull out all my music, and I'd play the Moonlight Sonata and the Fur Elise. But I had jazz inside me, and I would try to play jazz, and I couldn't find it. So one year, I guess I was about 48 years old, I tried again, and I thought, well, rather than try to play piano and fail at it, I ought to try a brand new instrument. And the first jazz album I ever heard when I was about 12 was Lionel Hampton, the founder of the vibraphone in jazz. And I thought, well, I'll try vibraphone, because that was the instrument that got me into jazz. And so I bought a vibraphone and fooled around on it. Now, the vibraphone is the same keyboard as the piano, so, I knew how to read music and form chords. Then I took a few lessons with a vibraphonist here in Nashville named Jerry Tashwa, and he kind of taught me the mechanics of playing. And then one day he said to me, you need to be playing with other people. You should go to the Nashville Jazz Workshop. The Nashville Jazz Workshop was my salvation. Roger and Laurie just took me under their wing, and that's where I learned to play jazz. And I'd say about 2 or 3 years after being at the Jazz Workshop, I kind of had been jamming with some of the musicians there, people at the same level as me. And I said, we should form a band and start playing out. And at the time, my law office was in the Lowe's Vanderbilt Plaza Hotel, and they had live music in the lobby. And the piano player there, a fellow named Bill Ferrari, was from Hawaii. So he and I had the Hawaii connection. So I went to Bill and I said, hey, I'm forming a band and I would love to try playing in the hotel. Will you give us a chance? So he booked me in the hotel. Had my first live gig was in the Lowe's Vanderbilt Hotel. And I played there with my band for probably about 2 years, once a month.
Really?
And that was my band. And the band has gone through a metamorphosis. Now, here's something that'll surprise you. So Doug, the managing partner of the law firm, is the bass player in my band. So Doug came to work for me about 12 years ago. And one of the things I liked about him is he had a music degree. And I noticed that you have a music degree.
I do.
So Doug and I talked about music, and I hired him. He was at Belmont College. I hired him to come to work for me, and we just connected. He was an incredible budding lawyer, or about to be lawyer. We worked together, and I had told him about my band, and one night he came out to listen to us. And then he said, he says, I play bass. Do you think I could sit in on a tune with your band sometime? And I said, sure. And I thought, wow, he's good. So Doug eventually became my regular bass player. So that's
how fun.
Yeah,
now, what name do you go by? How can someone find you guys these days?
It's called the Rose on Vibes Quintet. I often joke with Doug that he had to audition on bass to become a lawyer in the law firm. But
well, it's Music City.
Yeah.
And different rules here.
Yeah. Now, I will admit that if I can use this podcast to plug my band, because I am...
Plug away.
Now, what we play is swing music, and we play contemporary jazz and Latin jazz. I play vibraphone. I play hand percussion from instruments that I've collected from around the world. And I play the African xylophone, which is called a jill. It's a xylophone from northern Ghana, Africa.
It's Banner and Company. So what do you say we hear a little of Linda's music?
I got this idea that I needed to get rhythm more ingrained in my playing. And I thought, I should go to Africa and take drum lessons. I'm kind of an adventurous person.
I gather as much, yeah.
So I had a client from Ghana, and so I decided, Africa is an entire continent, and I just thought, okay, I'll go to Ghana. Knew nothing about it, and then I went onto the internet and I put music schools in Ghana. I found a music school, and I noticed that the owner of the school was a mallet player. So that was the school that I went to. I had no idea what I was getting into when I went, and I remember my friend driving me to this school, and it was in a little village down a dirt road and way deep into the countryside. Well, that changed my life. I got introduced to the African xylophone and met people that I have become lifelong friends, very deep friendships. The owner of the school was a renowned xylophone player. He had performed with Maya Angelou, with Yo-Yo Ma. When the Obamas went to Ghana, Africa, he hosted them. So he was a very good friend of mine. His name was Bernard Woma, and he died a few years ago. But I learned to play the Jill from Bernard. And the funny thing that I did with it is I improvised on it. So Bernard heard me doing that, and he was like sort of amazed by it and very intrigued. And then one day he said to me, so what else do you do besides play music? And I said, well, I'm a lawyer. I practice immigration law. And he said, what? And he said, I would love to bring my dance troupe to America. And I said, well, that's what we do. I went home and I did a visa petition for his dance troupe, and they came to the United States and toured. Now, this was a group of young musicians from rural Ghana coming to the U.S. to tour America. It's been a great opportunity for them. They've come every year since.
Wow.
So since 2007. So that's how I combine work and music. As I said, my law partner is my bass player, and my clients are musicians that I have met in my world travels. So that is how I got into music. And my band is, so I also brought the Jill, the African xylophone. I incorporated that into my jazz music. So I will play a traditional African song, and then the band comes in with jazz instrumentation. It's a really cool sound, and it's pretty unique. I don't think that there's anyone in Nashville playing music like that, and usually it gets people up dancing. And when I do a performance, I hand out instruments to the audience and get them playing the shaker and the cowbell, and people get up and dance, and it's really a fun time. It's what I love about playing music, just to see people enjoying it.
How do you find time to practice?
I practice every day. I pick up my mallets every day, whether it's for 5 minutes or 30 minutes. And I'm a perpetual student. I continue to take classes at the Jazz Workshop. A great find in Nashville, by the way. So I just have a schedule of what I do every night. I have a big music room, all my instruments. I'll practice the vibraphone, and then I'll go to one of the spaces and I'll practice my martial arts kata, do that for a few minutes, and then go back to the vibraphone and play a song. Then I might sit at my desk and do my Italian lesson.
What?
I'm studying Italian. I'm of Italian descent, and I have Italian citizenship. And I'm going to Italy this summer to attend a martial arts seminar on the island of Sardinia, and I'm going to compete in the women's kata competition. So I had to ask them if they had a category for women over 70, and they said they'll make one for me. So
Great.
but I'm going to go there and it's a seminar, and I will practice and study for 3 or 4 days, and then they have a competition at the end. But before I go to that, I'm going to go to an immersive language class in Sardinia and study Italian.
So tell whoever's listening that if they want to do something, they really shouldn't hold back, that time is of the essence, and just jump in and do it. It sounds like that's how you've lived
That's
your
what
life.
I do. When the opportunity is there, I grab it. And I also, one thing that I've learned over the years is if you think of someone that you want to contact, do it right away. Contact them, reach out to them. I try my best to stay in touch with people. I remember with my martial arts sensei in Hawaii, I would call him periodically, and one day I called him. We had a nice conversation, and a week later he had a heart attack and died. But yeah, you can do anything. I just feel like, you got to put your mind to it, and that was, I'll just mention one other thing that I did when I climbed Mount Kilimanjaro a couple of years ago.
Check.
That was an amazing experience.
Your bucket list must be going out the door.
I just, if I think of something I want to do, I put my mind to it and I do it. And I schedule in the time. I make the time to do everything. I came up with this idea that I would climb Kilimanjaro. And I had a friend whose cousin lives in Tanzania, and she put me in touch with her, and she has climbed Kilimanjaro twice. And she's a woman about my age, so I asked her if I could join her on a climb someday. So she said, yes. She says, I'm organizing a climb in February. This was for February 2022. And so she had about 8 friends who were going to go on this climb with her. So I joined in, and I began training. I downloaded a training program from something called Mountain Tactical, and I trained every day before I went into the office. It was the most rigorous training I've ever done. Well, about 6 months into my training, the woman who had organized it let us know that she wasn't going to be able to climb because she was a medical doctor in Tanzania, and something came up with her clinic and she was not going to be able to go. But she said, I have the whole trip planned for all of you, so you should all go. And she said, my nephew's company will take good care of you. So I thought, that's fine with me. But the others all of a sudden started saying, oh, I'm so glad you're calling it off, and I really didn't want to do this, and I don't think I'm ready to do it. Everyone dropped out, and it was just me. And so then I was really upset because I thought, how can I do this thing alone? I called the company and spoke to them, and they said, come by yourself, and we will arrange the trip. Our guides will take you up the mountain. I went by myself. I was the only climber in the group. I had 9 guides. There was my 2 guides and a cook and people who carried the tents and everything else. So this whole team of Tanzanian mountain climbers and me.
Was it almost better that way?
Well, it was, because then we didn't have to deal with anyone else's schedule, and I actually had a difficult time doing the climb, not because of strength or endurance, because I was set on that, but the altitude sickness hit me on the second day, and there's no way to stop that, and it got increasingly worse. I'd go to sleep every night, like crying, because I was so sick. And then I got to the point that I couldn't eat, and on the day that we were going to summit to the top, we got up at 4 o'clock in the morning and headed out, and we got about a fourth of the way there, and I just said, I can't do it. I'm just too sick. So we went back, and we still had another day. This was the good thing about, just me. So the next morning we got up again at 4 in the morning and headed up the mountain. And I was still feeling sick, but I thought, I can do this. And I'll tell you something that I don't know if you'd want to broadcast this, but I had a religious experience climbing up the mountain. My mother came to me. My mother had passed away about 5 years earlier, and she was right next to me. And I said, "Mom, help me get to the top." And she walked along with me, and I got to the top of the mountain. And then she left. If I could do that, climb to the 19,000 feet high, climb to the top of Mount Kilimanjaro while I was experiencing altitude sickness, I can do anything.
Banner and Company is a production of the new Nashville Banner. This episode was produced, edited, and mixed by Steve Haruch. The original music is by Verlin Thompson. You can subscribe wherever you get your podcasts or go to NashvilleBanner.com. You're in good company. We do a little thing on the podcast. The final question is in the fishbowl.
Oh, okay.
And you never know what you're going to get.
I wondered what this was.
Yep.
Oh, I like things like this because there's
Read
no
it out
wrong
loud.
answer.
Let me see.
Oh, from Mike Bubb. What brought you to
What brought you to Nashville? Was it a job, a relationship, or music?
I described how I was sitting in my hammock, and my then husband had a job offer here in Nashville, and the last thing I wanted to do was leave everything in Hawaii and move to Nashville. I was senior associate at my law firm practicing immigration law. My child was in a beautiful daycare center, and the family across the street loved helping me take care of her, and we had just bought a house, so I did not want to come to Nashville. But I came with the intention of staying for 3 years, and as I said, that was 35 years ago. Nashville's been really good to me.